Hi friends, welcome to my channel. My name's Fiddle. Today we're going to be making this interesting vanity with a working sliding door and gold details. I ended up making two of them to get the pattern right, but I think it's pretty darn close. And speaking of pattern, don't forget to stop by Patreon where you can find the list of materials and free printable pattern so you can make this for yourself. And also, I'm going to be adding these two pieces to the list for the Patreon giveaway. Okay, are you ready? Let's go. The first thing we need to do is cut out and trace all of our pattern pieces onto our chipboard. Each pattern piece has a corresponding number of how many you need, and there are quite a few of them. They're mostly to double up our layers to make the material look a little thicker and like wood. When you have a lot of pieces that you're tracing out that are the same size and shape almost, it's a good idea to put a check mark on your pattern piece when you know you've traced all the ones you need. Okay, so I've begun to really like double-sided sticky tape, just for the simple fact that we can stick our layers together without them warping or anything due to glue and the wetness. So be prepared for a lot of sticky tape. With that being said, let's start sticking our first pieces together, and that's going to be the mirror. We only need to stick 2 of the 3 pieces to the double-sided tape. Then trim around the edges as close as you can to your material. Next, sandwich all the mirror pieces together. Another thing that's cool about using double-sided sticky tape is we don't have to wait for dry time, and that makes crafting time go a lot faster. Okay, now onto the half moon shape. I used 3 layers instead of 2 just to make it a little bit thicker. Repeat the same process as we did before by sticking the tape on the back and then peeling it off and sticking the layers together. I did find out that it's a lot easier to stick the pieces together, rough cut, and then cut the final shape after you've got them all stuck together. You can do it individually, but you'll probably end up sanding more just to get the edges smooth. For the notched circles, we need 8 of them in all, and we only need to stick 4 of them to the double-sided tape. For the big circles, we need to take 2 of them and put sticky tape on both sides. And that'll give us 2 towers of 3. Now we're ready to start peeling our tape and sticking them together. The notch circle stacks are 2 each, equaling 4 in all. Then move on to the big circles, and those are again 2 stacks of 3. Now that we've got them all taped together, we can cut them out. For the notch circles, I figured out that it was easier to cut these corner pieces out with the knife and then come back in and do the rest of it with the scissors. For the next piece we need to cut out, I actually marked it wrong on the pattern piece. The medium-sized circle, we only need 2 of them, not 3. They should be the size of your toilet paper roll, and we don't need to stick them together, we need them individual. Okay, for the next part, you'll need your toilet paper tube and your mirror pattern piece. Lay the pattern over top of the toilet paper tube and mark a line down both sides. Then cut along both lines. This gives you the cupboard portion for the vanity. And hang with me because it gets a little confusing right here. Once you've got it cut, take the skinny piece and lay it over top of a new paper tube. Measure out and mark one side as is, but for the other side, measure about 1/4 of an inch away from the edge and then mark there. Then cut it out. Now using the same tube that we just cut from, measure and cut another piece just like this, but we don't need to add the 1/4 because we already have. That should give you 2 pieces of the same exact size. Toss aside the original rectangle that we cut out. We were just using that as a pattern piece and we don't want to get it mixed up with our other pieces. Okay, grab your original tube that we're using as the cupboard and measure down 1 inch because we only need the cupboard to be no taller than 3 inches. And the door should be about 1/8 of an inch smaller. This part is optional, but I went ahead and tried to sand down the grooves on the paper roll. You can still see the lines a little bit, but it's better than what it was. Next, on the inside of the paper tube, mark out your 1 inch increments. These are going to be our glue lines for the shelves. Next, we need to add tape to the back of 2 of the notch circles and both of the middle-sized circles. Then trim the excess tape off. Okay, now we're ready to start sticking our layers together, starting with the big circles and a medium-sized circle. Center the medium-sized circle over the bigger circles. Then add 1 stack of the notch circles on top of that. We want to make sure that the notch portion is lined up with the medium-sized circle. Repeat the same process again for the top part of the stand. Set them aside for now. We're going to move on to putting the shelves inside the stand. Add glue along the notched edge of one of them. Then set it inside the paper tube about 1/4 of an inch away from the edge on one side or the other. Now add the second shelf in, lining it up with the first one. After making sure my lines were straight and clearing away the excess glue, I held it together with tape until it was dry. And while we're waiting for that to dry, we can move on to putting the mirror stuff on the mirror shape. I'm using some flexible mirror stuff that has sticker on the back of it, so I don't need any extra glue or anything. I traced the pattern right on the back of the mirror stuff, cut it out, and then peeled the sticky backing off and stuck it to it. Trim off any excess and set it aside. Once your shells have had time to dry, we can go ahead and add the top and bottom on. When you go to glue it down, make sure that you are just on top of the big circles and up against the middle circle. And all of your notch circles need to line up, so make sure you're checking that as you go. Next, we need to cut the big triangle piece out of our chipboard. For this one, you have to glue the little triangle to the big triangle, trace it onto the chipboard, then cut it out. To make it easier to work with and give it the curve, wrap it around a paint bottle or something similar in size and let it sit for a few minutes. Okay, to make sure that we've got everything lined up properly, make sure that you're holding your cupboard with the notch side to the left, and then draw a line down the back where you need to attach your triangle piece. Next, on the inside of your triangle piece, measure 1.5 inches up and mark a line. Next, get your 2-inch ribbon stool and glue the smaller circles, one on top, one on bottom. Okay, now that we've gotten this far, we need to paint some of our pieces because it is harder to get into the cupboard after it's put together. Go ahead and paint everything except for the door and the big triangle piece. We'll paint them later. And I know it doesn't make sense to mark where you need to attach the other piece and then paint over it, so if you want to wait until after you've painted and it's dried to measure out and mark where you need to attach it, that's fine. I ended up having to go back and do it again. Once everything's had a chance to dry, we can start putting our pieces together. Starting with the big triangle piece, add glue along the tabs and attach it to the cupboard where you had put the marks before. Then tape it in place. While the glue is still wet and malleable, we're going to continue putting it together. Next is going to be the moon shape. Set it aside to dry, and we're going to move on to making the door. You'll need one piece from our doors that we cut earlier and a paper brad. What we're going to do is lay it against our door and decide how long we want our handle to be. Then mark it on both the door and the brad. Then using a pair of pliers, bend it where you put the marks. Then about 1/2 inch from your bend, trim off the excess. Next, cut slits in the door where we had put our markings earlier, just as wide as our brad. Then poke the ends of the brad through the holes. While holding the brad in your fingers, use your pliers and bend the end of the tabs upwards. Next, take a piece of double-sided sticky tape and put it on the inside of the door. Then sandwich the two door pieces together, but take your time while doing this because once it's there, it's there. Once you've got that done, set it aside. We're going to start working on the stool cushion. You'll need 4 little squares of foam. Once you have all your foam pieces cut out, double-side sticky tape them all together. The next pattern piece you'll have to make on your own because I forgot to put it on the paper, and you'll want it to be just a smidge smaller than the smallest circle. Trim off the excess. Then add another piece of double-sided sticky tape on the top piece of foam. Fold down the sides until it comes in contact with the piece of chipboard. I don't plan for it to stay, we just want to mark out where we need to cut, because this time we're going to leave a little bit of an edge so we can fold it down over the sides to help the fabric stick to it. Mush the tape down a little bit on the sides and then peel the backing off. If there's any pieces or bits sticking up, you can use a silicone tool, even your fingers, to push it down to where it's touching the foam. Now take your swatch of fabric and press it down over the tape. Stretch it down over the sides to try to avoid making creases and wrinkles. Then trim off the excess. Add another piece of sticky tape to the bottom side, and use your fingers and tuck the fabric up underneath as close as you can. This is completely optional for you, but I didn't like the color of my stool, so I painted it with an off-white color. Now we need our last stool circle, and we're going to put double-sided sticky tape on it. I know we've been using it a lot this project, but it does go a lot faster compared to waiting for glue time. Plus, what I'm getting ready to show you was a game changer in my book. This time while cutting the tape off, leave a little bit of an edge because we're going to fold it under. Once you have your tape all folded down, grab out your gold leaf and start laying it over top. I love this option over trying to use glue. For the first vanity, I tried to use glue and I didn't like how it worked, and I was peeling pieces of the gold off that I didn't want to take off. It was horrible. This took no time at all and it was less mess. Okay, now let's cut the trim and do the exact same thing. Measure and cut 3 pieces of wood dowel. Cut a piece of tape about the length of your sticks and lay one on the very edge. Then roll the stick up in the tape as tightly as you can. Trim off the excess as close as you can. Peel the backing off and then smooth down the tape as much as you can. Then add your gold leaf. Repeat the process for the other 2 dowels. Okay, let's get the stool on now. Set the stool at the end of the moon, then wrap the end of the triangle all the way around. And tuck the very tiny end in up underneath. Glue the gold leaf trim to the door. I held mine on with a paper clamp until it dried. Okay, grab out your temporary tattoos and your stool pattern. Pick out the spot you like best and trace your pattern over top of the clear plastic on the tattoo. Cut it out and apply it onto the stool just like you would on yourself. I even cut some of the leaves out and added them in as well. Dust it with a bit of cornstarch to take the sticky and shine away. Okay, now we can finish putting the stool together. Put double-sided sticky tape on the back of the cushion and on the bottom side of the gold circle. Center the cushion over top of the gold circle. And then the gold circle on top of the stool. Next, glue the trim onto the cabinet. And speaking of trim, we need to make some gold leaf to go around the mirror's edge. Cut a long strip of paper, I would say about 3/16 of an inch wide, and we'll say 10 to 12 inches long. Then, just like we did before with the gold leaf, add the double-sided sticky tape and put the gold leaf over top. Then double sticky tape the other side and then stick it to the mirror. Sand and paint any remaining spots that you have left. and finally put the door in place. And with that, it brings us to the end of our tutorial. I hope this gives you some idea for your next project piece. As for our next project, I'm not really sure. We might go back into Madeline's house, or I might participate in Mermaid. If you're new, welcome, and if you've made it this far into the video, thank you. Like, share, subscribe, comment. Thank you, Ginger, and I'll see you next time.